Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for January 23rd, 2024. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life that you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat feature, and I'll try to make sure Gayle gets to them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. And we're streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there as well, and I'll relay them to Gayle. We're going to start by recapping last week's Weekly Tittle, which was called "It's So Easy When You Know the Rules." I don't know whether anyone got the reference on that one. That's from the Queen song "Play the Game." That's where I was going with that. The assignment was to gamify a task or a project component. Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook who came up with a new game to play this week. Please let us know in the comments. YouTube viewer and frequent commenter Wanda Yonder shared this Tittle report. I don't like competitive games, too stressful, but you've reminded me to get back to useful tidying and clearing games. I've just done a timed 20-minute when you enter every room, do one thing game with everything done in a minute or less. Started in lounge room, straightened coffee table, and picked up slippers to go to bedroom. In the bedroom, picked up clothes from the floor, hung them, and quickly stripped sheets off bed. In laundry, filled and turned on washing machine, picked up rubbish to go to kitchen bin. In kitchen, rinsed and stacked dishes to wash, etc., etc. It takes the sting out of getting things started and done and makes a visual improvement. Back to the games. They really work and make activity enjoyable.
Thanks, Wanda, for your report on this game process. Everyone has their own organizing style, right? We're not all into competition. If competition is not your thing, you can still come up with a game to help you declutter. I personally love this because it makes it so clear how simple gamification can be. She's not even tracking anything or doing anything elaborate. She's just letting a time limit and a method be her guide. Walk into one room, do one thing that leads you to another room, etc. Keep it up for 20 minutes and you've made some progress everywhere. I love that. When the timer goes off, you can stop your routine for a bit until you're ready to try again. So thanks for providing us with a perfect example, Wanda. I really appreciate it.
Paula says the whole gamification thing mystifies me, so I took 3 bags to the thrift store instead. So you know what you do? Take a Post-it and stick it on your refrigerator and make 3 little tick marks.
Right? Because you
You've
took 3
started your
bags.
game.
There you go. That is all you have to do, man. That running list of how much you've removed from the house in whatever method is a game that only gets more satisfying because the list just gets bigger and bigger. You never have to stop it and restart. You just keep adding to the list. And so that number is just going to become so much bigger and you just get more and more proud of yourself because the number just keeps growing. So that's a really easy game to win because as soon as you put something on there, you've already like, ooh, I've taken 3 things out and everything you add is just going to make the number bigger. So it's a good one to start and it'll make you feel better.
Jane in California says, I stuck with my same game. I'm buying new undergarments, so went through the dresser drawers looking for all old ones. 19 things were found to throw away and several socks with tags to donate. Now I've given myself
Excellent.
permission to order replacements.
There you go. So you clearing the space so you can have fresh. That's wonderful. And yeah, I know it's weird to throw underwear away, but there's a certain amount of, if it's fallen apart or if it's been well used, it doesn't make sense to share it with someone else. And
Right.
so there's some undergarments that just have to be thrown away. But generally, if they're fresh and they haven't been used and you don't like them and you're ready for new ones anyway, then there's some that can be donated as well. So I like that you're clearing the space first before you order. And now the space is ready to receive whatever you buy, which is excellent. And it's also that process of touching everything first gives you an idea, a clear idea of exactly what you have. Like it's sort of like refreshing yourself about your inventory so that you know what's there, and then you know what needs updating, what needs replacing, how many need replacing. Oh, I really have these, extra socks. I don't need socks. It's good that you touched it first before you started shopping, and then it'll change. You'll have that in the back of your head as you're shopping for what's new.
Jane also added, as a reminder, my goal is donating a specific number of items this year and living out the 1 in, 2 out process.
There you
So
go. Well,
she's trying to get rid of 2 things for every new thing she brings in.
so you got rid of 19 things, or maybe a little bit more from your description. And so that means that you get to add in 10.
Connie says, I set a timer to see how long it took me to do a few different tasks. I'd done that decades ago. I'm slower now.
Aren't we all?
It was bound to happen.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that true for everybody? But it's great to know in real time, in actual time, how long it takes you to finish something. So then you can go, oh, I have 20 minutes. And that means I can do task number, 3, because I know that that's one that I can get done in 20 minutes. It's a good reference point for yourself for when you have a spare 20 minutes while the meatloaf is cooking. You can go do something while you're waiting for something else.
Right?
Good job.
Linda says, I merged the report card tittle and the gamification tittle.
Oh,
I had set myself the little challenge game of adhering to 1 in, 1 out during December. This is something I find helpful throughout the year, but then I
sure.
forget about it in December with all the holiday hustle and bustle.
Right? With the haul that comes in December.
Yeah, I forget about it in December could be my motto, because yeah,
I forget about everything in December. Is that what you're implying?
everything. I go completely off the rails in December.
Right.
Linda goes on to say, the report card for this is a B for how diligent I was, but an A for results. Even though I
Hey.
couldn't keep this top of mind perfectly, my B level performance kept the house reasonably tidy and left me with no big mess to clear come January 1.
Yay. Good
Finally,
job.
finally, I have to say that actually doing the 1 in, 1 out was not hard, but remembering that I intended to do it seemed to be the bigger challenge for this old brain.
So maybe that's something that you can post somewhere. Put a little card up as a little reminder on the door or the fridge or the bathroom mirror or in the closet somewhere. Give yourself a little happy sign that says 1 in, 1 out, and see if it works. Maybe you need to have it in the kitchen because that's where a whole bunch of stuff comes in, or depends on what kinds of shopping that you have to worry about putting when you're putting something in, taking something out. So park yourself a little reminder card somewhere to help you look at it.
All right, I think we should get on with our main topic.
Okay.
How do we evaluate the stuff in our lives? What questions should we be asking about ourselves and our belongings as we decide what to keep and what to let go? Today, we're going to explore the power of probing questions to unpack clutter issues and suggest queries that can get to the heart of our toughest challenges.
As a professional organizer, half of my work is just dealing with the physical stuff of clients, sorting it, bagging it for hauling to the trash or the recycle bin, or to donate, and then dragging it to my car and running those errands for the clients. I'm taking to donation. Maybe if there's a huge recycle pile, I'm going to take it off to a big recycle bin somewhere. Sometimes I go to electronic recycling or Texas Art Asylum. So I'm running all those errands for the client. But the other half of my job is asking probing questions of clients to discern what's valuable to them and what is forgotten by them, what they keep out of guilt, and what truly makes them happy to have and to use. I'm always trying to find out if this item is emotionally or actually valuable to the client, or something that the client can cast off now. As a result, I have a big bag of questions that I use to quiz clients for the info I need to support them. I need to know if the item is staying and needs to be part of the household system, or it needs to be withdrawn from the house permanently. So today we're going to jump into my bag of tricks / probing questions to help you do the same for yourself. And I do want to interject here. Ed tells a story when we were working out of his house about the questions that I asked him about a piece of artwork that was on the wall and how we got through it and changed his mind about whether he needed to keep it or not. And a lot of times the goals of my questions are to find out what's really driving somebody to keep it. And sometimes that answer is guilt. And so for Ed, this thing on the wall was a piece of artwork from a
Obligation.
friend, and it
Yeah.
felt like
Yeah.
an obligation. When I started asking
Right.
about it, that's what came out about it, right? And so I don't think he'd ever thought about it that way. And when you were able to look at it from that point of view, it changed. You were like, oh, yeah, I'm done with that. Like, you were able to
Yeah.
let go of it really quickly. And so a lot of my goals for these questions are to change the direction that you look at something, ask questions that you probably haven't ever asked yourself about it in order to find out how you truly feel about it. And once we knew that he was like, yeah, I feel obligated to keep this. I'm like, yeah, why? You kept it for 20 years. I think you honored the gift. This person is not in your life anymore. I think it's okay to pass that. Like it's okay to release. And then you sort of took that mindset and then it pivoted how you thought about all kinds of stuff in the house, which was really helpful.
I remember even some of your more mundane questions as we were starting out, like you saw a door that hadn't been opened, and you said, so what am I going to find if I open this door?
What did we find behind that door?
Probably office supplies.
Right. There were a lot of office supplies in that house now that I remember, because in that back bedroom there was office supplies, and in that closet and
Yeah.
in the front room, yeah, there was definitely. Anyway, another day, another
Right.
job.
Right.
But you get the idea. There's questions to be asked about why something's in the house, and this is where we're going to go today. So for the first couple of categories, generally, if your answer to these questions is yes, then the item needs to have a permanent parking space in your house for its ongoing use. So my first question is this item something someone in the house is actively using right now? Like, here's the deodorant in your bathroom. That's the deodorant somebody's using. That means that, yes, I'm actively using that right now. Did I or someone else use it today or this week is one question to ask. So is it being used weekly? Or have I used it in the last month? Does it get picked up once a month? I'm trying to find out frequency there to find out, is this something that somebody goes looking for once a year? Or is it something that's getting used every day? Because that's going to change. It's you've already told me that it's something that you're going to use and you need to keep, but then I need to find out how often to know where to park it. Does it need to be, if you're going to use it every day, then it needs to be reachable quickly in the space where you're going to use it. And if you're going to use it once a year, like the Christmas decorations, then it doesn't have to be out in the open somewhere. It can be away because it's only going to come down once a year. So the frequency of use tells me where to park it. Is this item purely a keepsake that I want to have with me forever? It's a photo, it's some kind of document, or it's a 3D object like clothing or tchotchkes. If the reason it's in the house is that it's just a keepsake, and not just a keepsake, but it is a keepsake, is the sole purpose for you owning it, then I'm going to ask a couple of more questions. Do I have many versions or copies of the same thing? If so, can I thin that volume and still retain the keepsake? Like, I have a million things with my mother's handwriting on them, but do I need to keep all of them, or do I need to keep a few of them? Can I thin that population? Do I have a lot of storage room to give over to storing keepsakes? Is my space super tight and my storage limited, like in a tiny house or a small apartment? If you are living in a small living area, then you have less living space to give over to storage. And so editing the keepsakes, giving over a whole bunch of that space to keepsakes that you're just keeping because they don't help you live in the house. You're just keeping them because they're keepsakes. But if your space is limited, then it limits how much it makes sense to store keepsakes. And that would then be a guide for me to shrink the amount of keepsakes that you keep because you need more of the space for living. And a related question, how much of my living space do I feel comfortable surrendering to becoming storage space instead of living space. I'm always going to want you to have more living space to be able to function better and to be to more actively use the space to be comfortable. And so I don't want you giving up 50% of your living space to store stuff.
Well, and to be clear, living space includes getting from here to there space.
Yes, yes, like the free walking area,
Yeah, you
right?
can't, like, so if your house is at 90% storage, then everything else you do, including getting, moving from the couch moving from the couch to the kitchen table has to come out of
Compromised,
that
right?
10% you have left.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's totally compromised. And so you're totally right. So I'm always going to try to set the parameters for how many keepsakes, how much of a volume of keepsakes that we make space for compared to how much living space you have and whether you have free movement in the house too. So it does mean that I'm always trying to edit the keepsakes down to, I know you think of this as a keepsake, but is this the best example of your mother's handwriting? Do you have others that are better? And therefore, if you have 200 pieces with your mom's handwriting on them, can we pull the cream of the crop and let the rest go? That kind of thing. So that I'm trying to combine them together and isolate them so that they're not floating around amongst the active use stuff. And I'm also trying to reduce the volume so that they fit. So I'm going to ask those two questions. But if it's actively being used in the house by somebody, then it stays and I got to work it into the household systems. If it is a keepsake that you want to keep forever and it's important and we have space for it and we've filtered it all for all my filter questions for keepsakes, then I'm also going to, find a parking space for the keepsakes. And that's, everybody has keepsakes and you got to make space for that. But beyond those two categories, if it's not in active use and it's not a valued keepsake, then what exactly is it? So now we're going to get into a big old long list of questions to qualify all the things that you didn't say yes to earlier. So the first one that came up is, do I love it? And in other words, does it spark joy, a la Marie Kondo? If you answer no here, that you don't love it, then it's ready to go as far as I'm concerned. If you don't love it, it doesn't need to be there. If you answer yes here, then that is one step, but not enough of a reason to keep it in the house. I will tell you that my client Zero tells me all the time, if I say, do you love it? She always says yes. She loves everything in her house. It's all cool to her because it's cute. It's wonderful colors. It's her favorite, fill in the blank. Everything in her house makes her happy, but she is still overloaded beyond her home's capacity. So the fact that she loves it is in no way a sufficient filter for whether it should stay in the house, because she loves a lot of stuff. And so we have to fight against her desire to keep it because she loves it, because it really impacts her living space capacity.
In philosophy, that was called a necessary but not sufficient condition.
Yes, yes, exactly. A necessary but not sufficient condition. Exactly. So then the next question is, would I miss this item if it was gone? Would I even notice it was gone? A lot of times people are surprised when I ask that question, would you miss it? No. They wouldn't even remember that. They didn't even remember that they had it when I found it. And so then they ask themselves, would I have missed it if it was gone? No, because you didn't even know you had it most of the time. So usually the answer to that question is no. And then it's one step closer to going out of the house. You can ask yourself, what is the cost of keeping this item? I have to clean it. I have to store it. It takes over living space. Maybe I'm storing it in storage space that I actually need for something else instead. So what's the cost to you and your home's functioning to keep this item? And maybe it's just getting in the way. Maybe it's just using valuable space that could be used for something more important. So you have to ask yourself, what is the cost of keeping the item?
And that cost varies from item to item depending on how its proclivity for collecting dust.
Right.
Whether it's something that wears out just from disuse, they're tools that if you don't use them and manipulate them occasionally, they're gonna get tight or
Frozen
rusty or
mhm.
frozen or and so on. Paula asked, Gayle, can you clarify what kind of items you're talking about here that aren't keepsakes or in active use?
Furniture, stuff, clothes in the closet, decor hanging on the wall, tchotchkes sitting around on counters, linens, food in the pantry, stuff in the kitchen cabinets, like basically everything else you own. It's not an active use item. It's not a keepsake. Then we have to talk about why it's there. It is a filtering process to find all the things that have been parked and ignored or saved just in case or inherited and not dealt with. And we're going to get into all those as we go down the road. So basically, you put clothes on, you get dressed with personal products, you eat the food in the pantry in the kitchen, you use some dishes in the kitchen to do that. You use the television, you use the bathroom. There's things in the house that you use the bath supplies in the bathroom. I mean,
There are probably about 15 pieces of kitchen equipment that you use
like
to
all
do
regularly,
99% of your food preparation.
right?
That's
The
active
coffee
use.
pot gets active use. The toaster
Yeah.
probably gets active use, right? So there's things that you use every day to live your life and to get clean, to get fed, and to go out into the world with clothes on so you can go to work or to go visit your friends or whatever. So there's a certain amount of stuff that you have to function and live in the world. And then everything else is a decision of what you live with. And so we're going to talk about that stuff. That's what all these questions are about. So do I love it? Would I miss this item if it was gone? What's the cost of living with this? So here's another one. Is this item something we once used in the house, but no longer use it because we replace it with a better version, or we no longer pursue that activity, or because the kids who used it have grown out of it? A lot of stuff that I find in the house are, here's the old vacuum cleaner. It still works, but we bought a new vacuum cleaner that we like better. Okay, well, then it's time to retire the old vacuum cleaner. Here is the stash of art supplies that the kid used when they were 10, and the kids are now 30. So you don't need the kids' art supplies anymore, but they were once in very active use while the kids were little. And so there was a decade or 5 years or whatever where this was their active play zone. But now all the stuff in that play zone doesn't make sense for them anymore. And you've never circled back and gone, okay, now we're not using this anymore. It clearly doesn't make sense. And I often find things in the house related to kids that are grown to adults, fully grown adults with their own children. And yet there's still stuff from the kids in the house because it was an active room, an active zone for a long time. And they gradually grew out of it. And nobody ever circled back to reclaim that space and to filter those products and objects. And so I do a lot of, the kids don't, here's the box of high school schoolwork
Or
that the kids have
nobody
forgotten about,
plays any of the games in this closet anymore.
right? Like
Or
that's not,
yeah.
and that's not necessary. And so we have that sort of filtering process of, we used to use it. We used to play tennis. We used to go skiing. We used to golf. We used to play bingo with our friends, whatever, fill in the blank. Everybody has seasons of life that come and we're very active around and then go. And there's always stuff that goes with them. And so if you've had your time with, we used to do, for a decade, my husband and I were part of a rotating dinner group with all of our friends, and we would go to 4 different houses once a month. And we did this for a decade. Awesome. But we don't do that anymore. Okay. Then all of that kitchen stuff and serving pieces and all of that stuff that you had that supported you as a hostess, a part of this running dinner party that you loved and adored for a decade and had so much fun, but those items are no longer necessary. You're not doing that anymore. That season of your life has faded. So you have great memories of doing it, but you're not going to do that kind of thing anymore. So going back and saying this was an activity that occupied a big portion of our social life for a long time, but now that's not how our social life works. And so we can let that stuff go. And yet people feel sentimental and nostalgic, and we had so much fun doing this. Sure you did, and you have great memories about it. And it was wonderful, I'm sure. And you don't need 37 platters in your house if you're not going to have that event anymore. And so it's questions that I'm asking to find out. You used to do this, you don't do it now, and you never circled back to remove that old period of your life, remove the stuff that represents that old period of your life in order to make space for the stuff that is your life now and what you're doing now. You've moved on to a different hobby, got a different set of friends, you're, doing activities in a different way. And so we want to make room for what you're doing now and let go of the stuff that you're not doing anymore. So we once used these things in the house, we no longer use them. So if it does fall in that category, it should be ready to be passed on now. And if you struggle with letting it go, then you have to think through your sentimental attachment to it and weigh that sentimental attachment against the need for freeing up space and clearing up your living space. You want to work hard here to let go of stuff and let it go to someone who can use it now, since you're definitely not using it anymore and it's just taking up valuable space for you. Next question. Is this item a back stock of something that I use all the time and that I have to replace regularly? So think about toilet paper. Everybody has a back stock of toilet paper because you got to replace it all the time. Pantry items, for example, that would be on that list. The next question is, how deep is the back stock? So you want to find out, do I have a month's supply of shampoo, or do I have a month's supply of soup, or a year's supply, or many year supply? How far into the future do I need to cover with back stock? And at what point will the supply deteriorate or chemically break down because I've owned it for so many years? I'm thinking about like shampoo and conditioner. There's some point where the chemicals in those things turn, I guess is the best word. And we've heard stories about people pulling out old shampoo or old conditioner and trying to use it, and it's smelling terrible because the product is deteriorating. So you want to find out at what point will the supply that you have sit on the counter waiting to be used and turn because it's so old. The more year supply you have, the more living spaces are converted to storage spaces. And if you have a many year supply, then now you're fighting against, is this stuff going to survive until I actually need it? Are we going to get down the road and finally I pull this thing out of the pantry and it's beyond dead because it's so old? So we want to balance how deep your backstock is and how many months it covers. You can ask yourself, as you're trying to contemplate how deep the backstock has to be, you can ask yourself, what's your worst case scenario? What is the longest disruption that you or your family have ever experienced from a weather disaster like a hurricane or a flood, or loss of power, or disruption of the supply chain? And is this thing that you're keeping a big backstock for, is it a true necessity, like gotta have toilet paper, or a matter of preference that you're worried about not having? Like, are you really worried that you're going to not be able to have your favorite flavor of cereal? And so you've got like 15 boxes of your favorite cereal. Is that really a necessity? No, it's really, you just don't want to run out of your favorite cereal. But
right. But in a pinch, there's another cereal you could eat, or another food you could eat instead of cereal.
Right.
Yeah.
To get you over if there was some kind of disruption and you couldn't get your hands on it. So
although you shouldn't ever allow yourself to run out of grape nuts. I mean, let's be clear about that.
Right. But you don't have to keep 37 boxes of grape nuts. That's what we're saying.
Okay, so I can keep 36 boxes of grape nuts, is what you're telling me.
No, I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you can have two.
Okay.
You have one that you're eating and one that's ready to be eating.
Okay.
And that's your clue to go to the store and buy another box. When you go to the last box, you open the second box. That's been my theory all along. Like, you have one that when you go to take it out because you've run out, it's the last one, and that's your trigger to put it on the grocery list and go replace it. And in the meantime, you're eating the last one, and it's going to take you a little while to get through it. So you have plenty of time to go shopping for it. And we experienced this disruption of supply chain thing because of the lockdown from COVID, and everybody's nervousness created a demand for toilet paper, which was a surprise. And then we also, like, there was some trouble with getting things stocked in the store, and we couldn't have our favorite flavor of fill in the blank, right? And so people were annoyed by that. But the truth is, no one starved to death from the lack of having their favorite breakfast cereal. And we all managed to come up with alternatives to eat in the meantime. And so it was just annoying. It was just annoying that we couldn't have our favorite stuff. But was it really a disaster? Did we starve to death? No, we did not. So in terms of creating a backstock, I just want you to think about, how deep does it really have to be? Is it really, like, we've experienced the weirdest thing in my lifetime that I can imagine, having a whole world shut down for however many months. And it was the most bizarre experience ever. And we all survived, and we all, had weird, substitutions and couldn't get things that we wanted, but it was just odd. And it was just annoying. It wasn't life-threatening in terms of, I can't have I can only have this cereal instead of that cereal. That didn't threaten your life. So annoyance factor taken into account, how deep does the backstock really have to be? That's the question. Can I stop buying this item right now and start using the backstock up for a while? If you have a super deep multiple year backstock, maybe you don't want to give it away or throw it away because you like the stuff, or, it's like, I know I'm going to use it. Okay. So then stop buying new versions of it and start using the backstock up, and diminish the depth of the backstock that way. Go through your own supplies, shop at your own store, and let some of those things get used up. So instead of having 15 bottles of shampoo, you can have 3. And so for the next 3 or 4 years, you can use the shampoo that you already have. And when you get down to 3 bottles, then you can let yourself go buy 1 more, that kind of stuff. Think about how you can go through the process of stopping to buy and start using your own supplies. And that'll change the volume of your backstock and change how much you have to store, and hopefully give you a little more breathing room in the places where you're trying to store all this stuff.
But how much of my space do I want to allow for, we could say display? So the keepsakes and decorative items get a certain percentage of space.
Mm-hmm.
How much for storage and how much for living, and for the total, the complete minimalist, that's going to be 0 for display, I think, and a very small percentage for storage. Maybe just, I have the extra bottle of the pills that I take, and I have the
extra deodorant.
Yeah, and I have enough milk to get me through the week.
Yeah.
And such. And everything else is just living. But it's a different number for each
for
person.
Everybody, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on the minimal end, and you're probably somewhere else in the middle of the spectrum, right along there. Right. And so, yeah, and there's no telling what has triggered people to feel like they have to have a super deep backstock, but that doesn't mean that you can't stop and reevaluate it again. Maybe what triggered you was how your parents taught you to do it, or maybe there was some event where you felt threatened or nervous, and that made you accumulate a bunch of stuff all at once. And maybe that situation has passed. So there's always time to go back and reevaluate how much you're keeping and why, and say, okay, I have all this stuff in the closet. Do I really need to have it? Can I use some of it up and stop spending money on the front end and use up some of the stuff that I have already on the back end and shrink that population back down? Now, you always have to look at your backstock too, because sometimes you have backstock of products that you don't use anymore. So if you do have a lot of backstock, I'm going to ask you if these are all products that you still like and use. And if they're not, if it's, I used to use this shampoo and now I use that one, then we're going to take the old shampoo that's quietly sitting back there and dying because you're never going to pull it out. And I'm going to suggest that you donate those away because it's not something that you want to pull out and try to use again. Okay, next series of questions. Am I storing things I inherited without integrating them into my household supply? In effect, never taking ownership of them. Can I integrate this item to my house now? Or did I receive this item as part of an unopened box that needs unpacking? Do I need to unpack some inherited boxes and see if these things are still interesting to me? Or maybe I'm ready to release some of these things I received from an estate. So what I'm describing here is somebody passes away, an estate has to be cleared. We go in while we're grieving and we handle things. And so you pull in often way more than it makes sense for you to pull in. And you don't really have any place to put them in your own house, or you only have a place to put a fraction of it in your own house, but it comes anyway. And you stick it in the corner or the guest room or under the bed or in the closet or whatever, you hide it. And you're grieving and you don't want to look with it. You don't want to deal with it. And so you hide it. And I'm asking at this point, is this a box of inherited stuff that we need to open and go through now? Do we need to look at it and find out, okay, in your grief, you picked these 5 things, but now you don't really want that. It was just in your moment of sadness, but really you don't want that iron. Right? So I'm going to try to unpack any kind of inherited box that's parked in a corner and allow you to take ownership of it. It's in a box because you inherited it, but you can then say, okay, I brought this home because I wanted it. Now it needs to be part of my household. It's not my grandmother's, and we're not my grandmother's household anymore. It doesn't need to be in its own little container. I brought the iron home because I want to use it. And so let's go put that iron where the ironing board is. Like, let's go put it where it incorporated into your household so that you can use the things that you brought with you from that estate that you cleared. And if we pull it out of the box and you look at it and go, what was I thinking? I don't really need that. Or I like the one that I have better. Or then it's like, okay, it's like doing the second round of decluttering in your house. You can now look at it and go, yeah, I was just sad in the moment, but I can let this thing go. I don't really want it. I've kept some other things. I have better examples of my relatives, and these things are not necessary for me anymore. And so you can donate them away after the fact so that we're not storing untouched, unprocessed, unclaimed things from an estate. Everybody has some, and I'm working on an estate right now that's really big. And so far, aside from the 2 parents and the 4 kids who lived in this house, we found, including those people, so there's 6 of them, we found 16 people's stuff in the house. We're up to 16. So that means 10 other relatives' things have come into this house, trunks, boxes, collections of photos and clothing and all kinds of stuff. And we keep pulling out things and opening them. Oh, that's Aunt Patty. Oh, that's Grandma Joe. Oh, that's, so we keep finding these people and we're up to 16 people, which is a record for me. That's the most amount of people in one house that I've helped somebody unpack. So let me just tell you how much of that stuff is going in the estate sale, how much of the paper is gone into recycling. Like, it's life insurance policies from people 3 generations ago. Like,
From
they're really
insurance companies that no longer exist.
Yeah, we don't need that. We just need to shred that. It doesn't need to be here anymore. So there's a lot in there in terms of estate things that I question people about.
A question that I wanted to ask before we get too far away from the topic. Dawn asked, can you donate partially used shampoo, lotion, etc.?
You can if you go to, you should verify this, but usually
check it with the place you're considering donating.
Yeah. But if you take that to some kind of a women's shelter or a men's shelter where they're giving away stuff or they're providing personal products to people to use, they will often take that kind of stuff because it saves them from spending the money. But you have to ask. And if it's a product that you can ask your friends if they like the products too. If somebody that is comfortable receiving it. Before you do that, I would clean off the package, clean off the bottle, open the lid and clean that out, get a little toothbrush out and clean it and scrub it so it looks clean and fresh. And that way, at least it doesn't look like a bunch of gradu when you hand it to somebody. But if you do that little bit and make it look clean, then I think people are perfectly comfortable with taking that stuff in donation and giving it to people. Think of a women's shelter, somebody that is fleeing a situation and they come with the clothes on their back and, one little bag of something, and they're coming away with nothing. And so it is a place that you can donate that stuff.
And you could apply the standard of how would I feel if someone gave this to me? I mean, you don't want to donate a bottle of shampoo that only has this much left in the bottom.
Right, a quarter.
But if you tried it a couple of times and didn't like it, and so it's only got a little air at the
missing
top, yeah, then that's a more reasonable thing, I think.
You can also offer those things in a buy nothing group. If you go online, go onto Facebook and look for a buy nothing group in your area and say, hey, I have these, partially used toiletries that I'm not interested in anymore. Does anybody want them? And you can just offer them up free to somebody.
And offer it as a lump sum. Say you take them all.
Right.
If you want this, you take this box I have. It's got 14 items in it.
Right. It has all this stuff in it. Exactly. Okay. That's about inheriting. So here is the next list of questions. Is this item something that I'm saving for the kids? So this is a category of stuff that I come up against a lot in people's houses. I'm saving that for the kids. So the first question I'm going to ask is, have I asked the kids if they want these things? I challenge parents who are saving things for their kids to find out if the kids actually want the stuff that they're saving. The kids usually want a very small sample of what you're saving, not the 37 boxes that you're saving. So I'm going to find out, have they asked their own children whether they want this kind of stuff? And sometimes the answer that I get is, yeah, but they're young and they don't know that they're going to want them later. Like, yeah, okay, but still, you don't need to give them they're not going to want 37 boxes. They're going to want one smaller box of stuff, and that will be sufficient for them. So this whole closet that you have filled with kids' artwork, they're not going to want all that. Just saying. So then I'm going to ask, you can ask this question to yourself. Have I filtered this collection to reduce the volume somewhat? Mothers keep everything. They keep without discernment. And so they just declare, my kid touched this, therefore I have to keep it. So I'm going to say, yeah, can we filter this collection? If you pull out all of the kids' artwork, how much of it is original and how much of it is coloring in a coloring book? How much of it is gluing things that the teacher cut up? It was a project at school. And so you can, again, look for the cream of the crop, look for the most imaginative, the most creative things that the kid has done, and let the rest of the stuff go. If you have 150 pages of coloring in the coloring book, you probably don't need to keep them all. You can probably keep, the best 3 and move on. So A, do the kids want it? B, have I filtered the collection? And C, how many boxes of stuff do I want to pay to ship? And how many boxes do my kids want to receive to store at their house? So you have to be conscious of, you may be able to offload it by getting it to the kids, but they're going to be really irritated when you try to give them 10 boxes of crap. So you were that person once. Remember your mother trying to give you a whole bunch of stuff from her house that was related to you. And you're like, I don't need that, mother. I don't need that, mother. They're going to say the same things to you. So you need to ask yourself, do I want to pay to ship it across the country? It's going to cost me $150 to ship all this stuff. Do I really need to do that? And how many boxes do my kids actually want to get at their house? Do they have room to store it? And so hopefully those questions will allow you to filter the things you're saving for the kids and make it a much smaller population. So the next category, do I keep this item because I believe it has monetary value? If the answer to that question is yes, then I'm going to ask other questions. Have I verified the fair market value of this item in today's market? or am I relying on family lore to establish the value? When was that value last tested against the actual current market? So I know that grandma always said that this silver was really valuable, or this china was really valuable, or this antique furniture was really valuable. But that was in her lifetime, in her world. And those values don't have anything to do with what the value is today. So we have to test that theory of value against what's currently happening in the market. So A, do I have any clue what the fair market value is today? B, do I intend to sell it someday to realize the money? The fact that it's valuable has monetary value, meaning, are you ever going to realize that monetary value? Are you going to are you saving it because you're going to sell it to get the money out of it? That's the next question. And then, do I think that the kids will go to the trouble to sell it after I'm gone, or are they just going to donate it? If I keep this antique piece of furniture because my mother told me it was valuable and I'm not going to sell it, but I think the kids are going to keep it, you don't know how far down the chain that's going to go before somebody goes, yeah, I don't want that. And it's going to go out. So the fact that it has monetary value is not always a good enough reason to keep it. And if the kids are going to try to sell it, maybe that's one thing, but maybe they're not going to do that at all. Maybe they're just going to donate it. So then it would require a conversation with the kids about it.
My sister and her husband, I've mentioned this before, they operate resale booths at three different antique mall kind of places. And people will approach them knowing that they do this as a hobby and second income. And they're always coming at Beth with, well, I think it's worth this. But their prices are based on what they spent on it, plus some endowment effect. It's mine, so obviously it's more valuable than a similar one that someone else owns.
Yeah.
And just completely unrealistic pictures of what the market is like, because trends come and go. And so recently at a family gathering, we had some older friends at dinner, and they were trying to talk Beth into taking some furniture, and it was sort of 1980s era, I think, just what was popular in the stores, a bedroom set. Well,
yeah,
a lot of people don't buy bedroom sets anymore. That the bedroom set has kind of gone out of fashion.
Yeah.
So you might be able to sell the dresser, but you're never going to be able to sell the bed.
Yeah.
And so on. And so the ratio of what people think their old furniture is worth to what anyone could ever actually get for it is probably about 1,000 to 1,
Right. We do remember what we spent for it. We do value it because we liked it. And we think, therefore, that should set the market price for what the item is. But the truth is, no one cares what we think about it. No one cares what we paid for it. And so the actual value of something is completely determined by what's of interest right now in the market. And we can't do anything about that. And the fact that there was a moment in time when your grandmother paid top dollar for that china because in that moment in her lifetime, that china was worth it and it was very valuable that way. That value has not stuck to the item over time. And so now we can't even begin to approach how valuable the grandmother thought that china was. It's not going to be worth that in the same way. And so it's a hard pill to swallow that, the things that we spend our hard earned money on are of no interest to someone else 20 years down the road, but it's the truth. So you definitely have to get real about, I think it has monetary value. Yeah, but you have to check the market to see how real that is.
Yeah.
So are you going to try to sell it? Do you think the kids are going to try to sell it? And how do I think it helps me financially to keep this item as a potential sales item? Like, we're keeping it because it has monetary value, but so what? If you're never going to sell it and you don't think the kids want it and you don't have any intention of trying to extract, to
actually
convert,
liquidating it. Yeah.
yes, then then why is it in the house? What's the point of the fact that it's valuable to you? How does that help you? And so then the end result is monetary. The fact that it has perceived monetary value is not a good enough reason to keep it. Do you find it useful? Do you find it pretty? Like, then I'm going to ask other questions. Is it here because of the monetary value? And if it is, then that's probably not a good enough reason, and I can probably talk you out of it. So,
Maureen, who's with us on Facebook, says, I think you can see values on items like that by watching Antiques Roadshow now.
oh yeah.
They show going price from 20 years ago and going price now, which is almost always much lower.
Yeah, there's a few things that hold their value over time or have risen over time, but the majority of things, because the trends have just gone up and down, it was hot for a moment and now it's not as hot, and the price has changed. And so,
Yeah,
and that won't apply, that applies to very specific, they're looking at very specific collectible things too. And
right.
so, your old jeans is not the same drill, right?
They're really only a very narrow categories of stuff that really
Mm,
appreciate in value. Real estate appreciates. That's been the pattern for a long time.
generally,
Gold,
yes.
gold, gold appreciates. The price of gold tends to go up, but a whole lot of things, almost everything else depreciates. Almost
Right.
everything else loses value over time,
Well,
except for the narrow
and
category of what's hot now.
right, it just has a rolling life, right? It's like it's a hot moment, it's a down moment, it's a hot moment, it's a down moment. And there's always some moment that everybody remembers because the price got so huge in that moment, that one moment in time, that if you owned this and it was it was worth this, and you sold it in that moment, you got a huge amount of money. But if you just kept it because it was so valuable, and then the moment passed and now you can't give it away, and maybe 20 years from now it might have a moment again, but will it have the same moment? Will it get as high again? Maybe not. So it is a roller coaster of value for stuff. And there's some things that are just like, you buy it, you use it up, and you can never recoup the money that you spent. And that applies to 90% of your household. 10% has the potential for being a collectible, um, being something that is part of a fad later, like that kind of stuff. There's a little sliver of things that have a potential to appreciate or at least hold their value. But 90% of it is stuff that you're going to spend a bunch of money for, you're going to own it and use it, and then it's going to have depreciated its value, and it's going to leave your house not worth anything at the other end. Just saying.
Okay, I better let you get on. There are more comments, but we've got a little more
Yeah.
material before we run out of time.
Yeah, yeah. So the last two categories: am I keeping this item because it was a gift to me? Then I'm going to say, do I feel attached to the person who gifted it? And is it the best example of a gift this person has given to me? People that are close in your life give you a lot of gifts over time. So it may not be the best example. If it's not the best example, you can let that one go because you're keeping better examples. Do I like this item at all? Was this a successful gift, meaning I really liked it? Or was it a swing and a miss, meaning it wasn't exactly to your taste? If it wasn't to your taste, you can probably let that go.
I've been reading Goodbye Things and Fumio Sasaki's book, and he makes a good point, which is, do you remember every gift that you ever given to anyone?
Oh, good
Yeah,
point.
yeah. Most of your friends and family members don't either. Now there are the
Right?
exceptions. There are those grandmothers who remember every single thing they ever gave you and will
Right.
hold you to account. But most people give you a gift and
And forget about it.
they're done thinking about it at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Do I keep this item because I have a vague sense that this item is still useful and I might need it someday? This is a prime stopper for a lot of people. It seems like it's useful. I might need it someday. So I'm going to then further ask, if there's not an immediate need for it, then how many things just like it do you have? Are there a whole bunch of this kind of thing? And how much space am I allocating to store things that I'm not clear on how or if they'll get used in the future? Am I using space to store these that would be better used for things that are in active use? So if you're just keeping it because you think it might be useful someday, then you are surrendering living space and valuable storage space to maybes when you have a whole bunch of yeses already in your house. And so we want to aim for thinning out the maybes or the might be's and reducing that volume way, way down, because you need the space that you have to store the keepsakes that you want to keep, and to store the things you're actively using, and to store your backstock for the things you're actively using. And so those things need to take a priority. And if you don't have a use for it in the moment, yeah, it probably doesn't need to stay. Or if you have 15 of those things, then you can probably keep one or two of them and let the rest of the volume go out. Okay.
All right, let's wrap it up. Let's talk about next week. We'll be back next week, same time, January 30th, 2024 at noon US Central Time. And we're going to talk about clutter versus decor. We touched on this just a smidge in today's conversation, but we're going to dive deeper into the places where decor leads to clutter, encourages clutter, turns into clutter, etc.
Et cetera, right?
Why don't you give us the tittle?
Okay, the tittle this week is called Playing Devil's Advocate. This week's assignment is to do a little play acting to interrogate yourself about an item from an outside perspective. So identify an item or a collection of items that you're contemplating whether or not to let go. Imagine yourself in the role of a challenging and skeptical critic of your stuff. For example, your mother-in-law, a minimalist friend, a favorite decluttering authority like me, or an imaginary character of your own creation. You just want that person to be skeptical of your stuff and challenging in your mind. Write a list of 3 to 5 probing questions about the object or collection that you're thinking about. And then write down your answer to each of the questions that you wrote. And now reflect on whether your skeptical critic would find your answer satisfying. Would he or she give permission to keep the item in collection in question based on the questions you've asked and answered? And see where you get. See if it changes your point of view about the object a little bit. Maybe it'll let you see it from a new perspective and let it go. And then come back and tell us how it went.
If you're watching this on YouTube, we would love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we encourage you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from our audience, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad that you came, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.